To preface this video, I just want to let everyone know before we get into the meat and beans of this topic, is that this is just my perspective and my opinion. And again, if you don't like that, that's okay. I'd rather have a discussion about it and talk about it in the comments with anybody that wants to talk about it. Three things in particular that I really want to get into the meat of is my perspective of the game, like I said. Another thing was my likes and dislikes of this game, what this game excels at, what this game really does struggle in, and convey that in the most accurate manner so that people don't get confused, especially for people that don't really know about this game, which the majority of my Twitch viewers, and as well as anybody that's ever seen my YouTube, knows that I play this game a lot. So I try to discuss it in the most manageable way possible. And again, just because it's my favorite game of all time does not mean that it doesn't have its issues. I have so many fucking gripes and hatreds and likes and dislikes of this game that it's a very love-hate relationship with this game that not a lot of games have ever made me feel. Another thing that I really want to try to push on is why I think a lot of other players should try this game. Give it a shot. This game really does, excel at social, creating friendships and a lot of long-lasting relationships with people that have played this game or have experienced the same thing that you're experiencing. So at least people that when I first started playing this game, especially a lot of my personal friends at home and a lot of family members that played this game with me wanted to try out and experience the same way that I did. So in any case, the moral of the point I'm making here is that I'm trying to establish why I think this game is a lot of fun. There's problems with it, but again, no game in the world has, it's just purely perfect. But this game really does provide the most experience and, fun gameplay in my mind out of all the games that I've ever played in my life. And I've been playing this game since 2013, or sorry, not 2013, 2015. Correct me. Sorry. But I'm going to categorize it in three sections of this video. One is my little background history of how I got into this game. Two, my gripes and likes of this game. And again, this is just an opinion, so if there's something you don't like that I like, doesn't mean we have to fucking hate each other for it, And three, why I think this game is a better experience overall if you play it with friends and try it out, especially for people that have never played shooter games. I've known so many people in this community that has played this game but has never played any shooter games. So without further ado, let's get into it. When the Taken King DLC dropped, it got a lot of hype and a lot of notoriety from a lot of YouTubers back then. One of those YouTubers being Mr. Fruit. Mr. Fruit pretty much inspired me to want to play this game so much more than a lot of other people did. Because for one, I didn't really care about sweaty YouTubers back then, or people that were like sweaty at this game, especially back in 2015. I was still in high school. It was my freshman year of high school, and I was so excited to get back, play the game, and continue on forward from there. And it really got me hooked, man. I got so addicted within the first couple of weeks of playing that game. I wish I had footage to show because that was on my dad's PlayStation back then, but I don't have any now, sadly. But in any case, like, it was a game changer to me. Like, my life would not be the same without this game back in 2015. I wouldn't even know what games I'd be playing still to this day without it. But in any case, let's still go back. Let's bring it back a little bit. So Taken King launched back in 2015 of September. Prior to that was The Dark Below and House of Wolves, which were in 2014 and 2015 in that order. Right. And the game prior to Taken King didn't really interest me. Like, I didn't really pay attention to it that much. And again, this is where Mr. Fruit comes into play, where I was watching a lot of his videos. And even though he, to a lot of people, everyone knows that, Mr. Fruit is a great person and a very positive attitude. And especially, like, he was having fun at the game, with the game, even though, like, he wasn't the greatest player at it, he was still having a lot of fun. And that's what really inspired me. Just keeping the mental fortitude to play a game that, even though you're not good at, you can still enjoy it. That's what's something that really got me invested into the game at first. And it's funny too, because Mr. Fruit pretty much randomly popped into my feed back on in YouTube back in 2014 and 2015. Like his videos would randomly pop up, and I don't know what caused it to, but I'm grateful that it did. I got hooked on watching his videos of Destiny in the OG days, dude. The one thing that really kind of got me to play the game was because of him, and I would not be where I'm at now today, streaming and working on this video right now without him. It's very sad that this game is no longer being updated and yada yada yada. But that was the YouTuber that really got me invested into the game, and two YouTubers in particular that really got me wanting to be get better at the game, especially was Kruzer, or sorry, not Kruzer. Yeah, was this Kruzer? Yeah, it's so weird because Kruzer, also known as John Barfield, they have like similar names, but Kruzer, Kruzer, and Hush, which he no longer uploads and his channel's gone now. But those are the two YouTubers that really got me invested into both playing Hunter subclass, class in general, and getting good at the game and wanting to play more and more Crucible, especially because without those, it's like the trio to me. Like Mr. Fruit was like the ignition, and Hush and Kruzer were like the fire that came after. Like those two really did inspire me to want to play the game more and want to start grinding and get better at the game. But we got to take it back a little bit. So even though I was watching all these YouTubers and wanting to play the game more and stuff, the problem was I didn't have the game. I didn't really. I was a kid. I didn't have money. I couldn't purchase things like that. So you ask your parents to. And my dad especially, was hesitant on it. But eventually my dad was convinced by a hometown relative to convince him to buy the game back in 2015 when Taken King dropped. So I think that's pretty funny to realize now. But that's how I got the game, because one of my dad's relatives, or one of my relatives from hometown, pretty much convinced my dad to play it with him and try it. My dad didn't really give a shit about the game, but your boy got hooked. It was like crack cocaine. I got addicted real quick.
Shazam!
But I just couldn't stop playing that game every fucking day. I couldn't help it, man. It was such a different experience than what I was used to. Because keep this in mind, I was a big fan of Bungie prior to that, because I played a lot of fucking Halo. Halo was like one of my main games that I played when I was a child. Halo and fucking Minecraft on the Xbox 360, that was like the good old days where I just couldn't stop playing that. But back to the overall point, without these YouTubers and without the circumstances that I was put in, I wouldn't be hooked into this game without it. Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at now in life without this game. Whether it's streaming or whether it's like, what video games I be playing nowadays. I'm so thankful for it, because this game is my favorite game of all time, and I will still, no matter what, I still feel that way about this game. In any case, the one thing that really drove me to want to get some friends to play this game was that once you've played this game long enough, you want to experience the same things you've been experiencing with other people. And that's exactly what I wanted to do for such a long time, especially, with Taken King. I really did enjoy this game back then, and I still do. It's just the experience wouldn't be the same without the people I've met. Which brings us to the next point, which is, personal friends and people I've met my years playing this game. There's so many people that I can remember from the top of my head that I've played so much fucking Destiny with, whether it be, just for playing the game, Crucible, which is also its multiplayer mode for people that don't know. But it just overall, it accumulated into experience, a high school experience, especially for me, for young me, for like no other. There were so many people. I'm gonna name a couple people from the top of my head, because I can't remember every singular person, but I know the ones that I remember having so much fun with back in the day. Like there was Joe Bensko, Luke Snake 17, Barfield, also known as John Kruzer. I met him last year, but I've known about him for such a long time. Damn, there's so many other people that I just can't remember names of, but I promise you that, like, if I don't name them, that doesn't mean I've forgotten about you. It's just that I can't, from the top of my head, I can't really think about it. But it was one of those things that, like, the experiences that I shared with people were some of the most best moments of my fucking life. And I wish I could relive them every single day. I cherish them more now than I did back then. But, man, it was something else, dude. Like, people won't realize that this game really does. It is a nostalgia boner for everyone that has ever played this game. But even to this day, it's still enjoyable and a great time. Like, there's so many players. It's ironic, too, because there's a lot of Destiny 2 players that come back to D1 to experience it because they've never actually played the game. They've only played Destiny 2 and then come back to visit this game especially. But I'm getting sidetracked now. The point being that this game provides a social experience like no other. And as stated, there's so many experiences and nostalgia and a lot of things that I'm grateful for, especially with this game and how many different experiences I've had in my life with this game. And that kind of leads on to the next thing, the next point, which is, the gameplay, like the likes and dislikes that I have for this game. So I'm going to get to it in just a sec. I also want to say one last thing. From me personally, to a lot of the people out there that have watched my Twitch and that have known about me for a long time, but I haven't caught up to date with them, especially in this game, in this community. Thank you. Thank you for the experiences you've given me. Whether or not I'm fucking salty on stream and stuff, whether I get mad at the game, at the end of the day, it's a video game, and it's one of those games that I will be grateful for till the day I die. I got dark a little bit, but you get the fucking point, all right? You get the point. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that's still playing this game, and thank you to the majority of friends that I've made along the way, and I still continue to make. So there's a lot to talk about in this section of the video, but I'm going to keep it as thorough and concise for people that know a lot about this game, and as well as people that don't know too much about this game, because I think it's the best way to explain my viewpoints on what I believe to be positives and negatives of the game itself. Kind of like a game reviewer, but not as fucking corny and shitty. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about the negatives first, because there's a lot of controversial takes on what people like and dislike when it comes to D1. And again, I want to reiterate as well that this is just my opinion and what I believe to be, good things about the game and bad things. So first things first. We're going to talk about the content the game provides. I won't be going into too much lore and story about the game. And I know a lot of people are going to, tell me that it's pretty hypocritical to, talk about it because that's what mainly the game focuses on. But me personally, I don't really care for that sort of thing. I know that a majority of this, the Destiny community is invested in it, but that is something that Destiny 1 is not, particularly good at. Storytelling and quests that the game provides to you doesn't really get me interested as much as the core gameplay of it does. I will say, hypocritically, that the Taken King DLC is still the best take that the game will provide to you with story, in my opinion. And like I said, I won't go too much in depth with it because it's just, it would be spoilers for people that have never played this game, and as well as an opinion. And I think a lot of the community will agree on this that the Taken King is this best story overall for the game. But that's what I believe to be like a weak point of this game. That the story itself is not really gonna capture you and can make you continue to play the game. It's more of like the grindy aspect that I think a lot of people will appreciate more. So I think that's a negative in my opinion. That the story and the lore don't really keep you enticed in the gameplay. And it's more so the core mechanics that keep you coming back to finish the rest of the story and get it over with so you can go ahead and keep grinding on your character, in my opinion. But yeah, that's just my take on it, personally. What I think to be is a negative with the game, at least content-wise. Story missions and strikes and stuff, they're cool, but they're just things you want to get done so that you can continue on grinding for your character. You know what I mean? That's, in my opinion, one of the weak points of this game. So another thing for me that is a big dislike is that the vault in storage is pretty limited for this game. You get 108 slots for both weapons and armor for all 3 of your characters. So you share the vault and storage with all 3 of your characters and 108 slots with them. And to some people, they might not have the same issue as me, but when you play this game for even a couple months to even to almost a year, that vault fills up quicker than you know it. Like, the storage is limited for an RPG shooter game in my mind. And to me, it hinders a little bit of the experience in this game. It's not the worst thing in the world, but of course, again, it's something that really affects players that wish to hoard/collect as much as they can, and especially for a shooter game like Destiny. There's been plenty of times where I've had to clear out my vault and remove a lot of stuff, and even things from my inventory, which is just more materials and all that stuff, to make room and storage for my vault. And I think that's something that really does hinder the experience in my mind. Last thing content-wise that hinders the experience for me is the underutilization of exotics in this game. Now, there's a lot of exotics that are really good, and there are a lot of exotics that are fucking terrible. Now, hear me out. For a lot of people, there are a lot of fun weapons to use in the game, but for most of the community, there are useless exotic weapons that serve literally no purpose, such as, hard light. Because all this gun does, it reflects bullets all over the place, yet it's the most redundant weapon in the game, because why would you shoot around the enemy when you can shoot the enemy itself? It's pretty stupid in my mind. And it really feels like any other auto rifle would be a better choice, you know what I mean? There's so many different things in this game to use that replace it, Like, take for instance, patience and time. Like, there's no reason to use patience and time. It requires you to stay aiming down sights in order for the perk to proc, which most of the time, nobody is really going to do that, for such a slim and shitty reward of going invis, because by the time you get out of your sights, you're no longer invisible. So it feels really redundant. Again, there's a lot of cool looking guns in this game, but really serve no purpose, and this is no different from it in my mind. And the last 2 examples I'm going to use to show why there's so many useless exotics in this game are like the Kvostov. Like, it's literally a basic bitch auto rifle that can be, super customized, but still serves no exact purpose at all. Like, why would you use this gun when you can use any other legendary auto rifle that would be literally a better choice? And I think that really does sum up a lot of the issues that exotic weapons in this game have. That they serve no purpose, that they're replacements for them. Legendary weapons can replace these weapons. And to me, it really does, defeat the purpose of being an exotic weapon, like Bullion Gemini. It's literally a scout rifle. Like, I don't even know how to tell you. Like, it's just a scout rifle with redundant perks that serve no purpose. But I will say, there are some guns in this game that are pretty broken. And I mean broken. Take, for instance, fucking Talaluk. Shield. Damn it. Dude, I hate Warlocks so bad. Warlocks are so dog shit. Yeah, but Talaluk is the one redeeming fucking thing. Just as there's underutilized exotics in the game, there's overutilized exotics. 2 in particular that are really broken in my mind and in my opinion. And one of them being Talaluk. Talaluk is the exclusive Warlock class weapon that when you get your super as a Warlock, you get you practically inject your gun with crack. And it is the most broken primer in the game. You don't really need to do much with it. All you need is your super with your Warlock, and that's it. It gets a faster fire rate, stability, handling, reload speed, and with already a 20-round mag, it's possible to spray constantly at enemies. Now, I should have mentioned earlier in the video that when I say that a gun is broken, I want to clarify this, that it's broken in Crucible setting, which is the PvP mode of this game. And in PvE, which is just the casual grind, sort of setting, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, to me, those exotics are not a problem in that thing. I just want to state that in a Crucible setting, as mainly that's what I mainly play in this game, and it's one of the most broken primaries in Crucible. There's just no doubt about it. There are gunfights that you could win with this gun that no other gun in this game would be able to do it with. You know what I mean? And another one that I want to mention I said that this is the most broken primary, right? I forgot to mention there's one broken special weapon that never was brought back to the max power level for a reason, and that gun is called Pocket Infinity. Oh boy. Probably me, because I know how this game works. Oh my god! Pocket Infinity! Where have you been my whole life? Chat, if that doesn't show you how broken that gun is, I don't know what will. Yeah. So as you can tell by the clip, that's Pocket Infinity. One of the most broken guns in the game. In my opinion, it's a little bit more broken than Talalek in Crucible. However, this gun does not care about how many enemies are in the vicinity, how far away they are, and how much ammo you have. Because it's literally a fusion rifle that has, in theory, infinite ammo, but it could do shit like that. So, in my opinion, that's extremely broken in a Crucible setting. In PvE, it doesn't really matter too much because that gun is not at the current 400 power level. There's no way to obtain it in that 400 power level, so there's nothing to worry about in PvE. But if it was in PvE, it would be extremely broken still. And those are the two guns in my mind that are really like annoying as shit to play against in a Crucible setting. I want to repeat this, Crucible wise. In PvE, people are not gonna really care too much about that shit, right? So those are two things that hinder my experience, at least in Crucible, with that shit especially. Last thing that I think that is quite lackluster in the game is the patrol mode. And there are a total of 6 patrol locations. 2 being on Earth, one of them which is the Plaguelands, Mars, Venus, the Moon, and Saturn's rings, which is the Dreadnought. Yet you don't really explore or, technically patrol all of them because 4 of the planets are quite redundant. The 4 being Mars, Venus, the Moon, and the Cosmodrome. That's not to say that there's no reason for using the patrol mode on these planets. However, the beautiful landscapes that the game displays for you is a limited exploration area that doesn't really have much to explore for. Like, every time you go to patrol, like, the Venus, like, the atmosphere in the background it looks amazing, but there's no reason to explore it. Now, I will say, the Dreadnought is the best patrol area because this is what the patrol mode should have been since the game started. So, the Dreadnought, which is the Taken King DLC, is the best patrol area because there are reasons to explore and look through the entire area. For example, the Dreadnought provides you with several different quests that require you to explore the area in search of calcified fragments, which are little collectibles that you can get from like chests, from just looking around like crevices in certain parts of the map. And it in turn leads you to like several different areas in the patrol mode there. So like Court of Orcs, which is like this challenge hub that requires you to deposit runes to start challenges for rewards dependent on the rarity of the runes. The entire patrol area is a good hub to explore and look around, whether it's for quests, secrets, or even summoning challenges for rewards, right? And a lot of what the Dreadnought does is amazing, and it's what I wish the rest of the game would provide. There's only one Dreadnought in the game that you can look through that provides just as much content and just as much exploration and reason to look through it. When you patrol any other area, you mainly do it for something random. It's never for like an actual reason. Like, oh, here we go. I got to go collect the resources on this planet because I need 5 of them to upgrade this or some random shit, right? So this is what I mean by a lot of the planets are redundant in patrolling. The Plaguelands, in particular for the final DLC of the game, there's really just one reason or 2 reasons to do that. It's like mainly Archon's Forge, which is the Horde mode in there. And it's kind of like it plays the same similar way where you deposit something, Horde comes out, survive, beat the challenge, get rewards, rinse and repeat. And the other reason for patrolling Plaguelands is a quest that they give you, which is weekly. You do 15 patrols and you get reputation and legendaries. So it's like there is reason to do it. But the prior 4 that I mentioned earlier serve no purpose because there's nothing to explore for. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, the Dreadnought provides the perfect patrol mode for this type of game. There are reasons to explore. There's a lot of different things you can do. and it really feels a lot, feels like the rest of the planets should have something like this. You know what I mean? And I think that in turn leads to the rest of the game wanting you to explore more. But it's like the only thing you can really explore is just the Dreadnought, because it's the best patrol mode. So that's what I think is something that's kind of lackluster. The Dreadnought is literally the only patrol area that it makes me want to actually explore and do more. In whether it's early game or late game, once I get my character maxed out and everything. So in my mind, I think that is something that really hurts the overall total game. It's not the worst thing in the world, because there are reasons, like the very minute and minuscule reasons to patrol, but in my mind, it doesn't really make up for how much content can really be shoved into each of those planets. Now, before we get into the things that I really like about Crucible, I want to talk about things that I really dislike in Crucible. The things that I'm going to talk about are things that people can agree with me on here if you've played Crucible long enough. You'll know what I'm about to talk about. For those that don't really know too much about this game or Crucible in general, it's going to be a little bit complicated to understand this section of the video because it's very conflicting and very bipolar opinions, right? So I already mentioned Talaluk and Pocket Infinity as things that are broken in Crucible, but those things mentioned are things that I disliked, that I personally dislike in Crucible. Not everyone's going to agree with that, right? But these next 2 points that I'm going to make about Crucible are things that almost every player can agree with me on here, especially. So one of those things that really hinders Crucible experience for all players is the wait times. Like I said, this game is pretty old, right? It's about 7.5 years old now, and it's about to turn 8 years old in September of this year, right? So it's very hard to find games of Crucible, and you'll end up waiting like 20-30 minutes just to find a Crucible game, and it's really frustrating to be waiting all the time for that long just to find a game of Crucible. And something that kind of correlates to that is skill-based matchmaking. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this here, that skill-based matchmaking doesn't exist in this game because of how old it is and how little how many players there are. But in reality, I really do think, in my experience and in my time playing this game, skill-based matchmaking does exist. Yes, it does. And I think that a lot of people can agree with me that, like, when they've seen my streams, especially when I play solo queue, I'll end up getting teammates that are just absolute morons. Well, I don't want to be that rude, but they're players that are not very experienced, more so, and people that have never really gotten good at Crucible. So they always put those players on my team every time, because when you solo queue, the game believes to be, fair to put very below average players on your team as someone who is above average, and then the enemy team are always going to be filled with just players that are really good or above average at most, or at the least, sorry. And it's one of those things that, like, when you play this game long enough, you'll know what I mean. Once you get better at this game and begin to play more and more Crucible, it's one of those things you're going to have to learn to deal with, and it's very frustrating. And again, this experience is mainly limited to a lot of, like, the top players. So, I'm not going to say that it's every player in general that deals with this, but it's definitely to people that have played Crucible long enough will know what I mean by that. So those are 2 things that I really believe to be, hindering with the Crucible experience overall for a lot of players. Now, the next couple things I want to talk about are things that I really like about Crucible. Crucible as a whole, the sandbox is really fun. It's really great. I love the gun variety in this game and how many different guns there are, and the amount of fun combinations you can have with those guns. Like, as you can tell by the background footage, I'm using Mida multi-tool with a sniper. I'm using a scout rifle and a sniper and playing like a nut. There are different varieties of playstyles in this game that are really fun, and some people stick to one style, but for me, I love playing everything. I love using everything in this game. Variety is something that I want all games to have, and especially for a shooter game, I love weapon variety, and I think this game does it well. There's a lot of people that use the same 2 guns, i.e. Icebreaker and No Land Beyond, but for me personally, I really love the variety. I think as a player, I've gotten better as a player who uses everything in this game. If you're able to adapt to using all sorts of guns and styles in this game, I think you can improve as a player, and it makes the experience much more enjoyable. Another thing that I think is really good about Crucible is the map variety. It's a very polarizing thing for a lot of Crucible players. Some people will say that they like this map. Some people will say, oh, it's the worst map in the game, yada yada. I think there's a couple maps in the game that are really obnoxious to play on, like very super long range maps. And I'm talking about just general mode, so I'm not talking about combined arms, which is like the vehicle mode in this game. I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm just talking about the regular base game and the Crucible modes, right? And to me, at least, the maps that provide super long range gunfights are like something like Blind Watch and Icarus and Cathedral of Dusk. Those are the maps that are really annoying to play on, and as well as like super close range maps are annoying. But overall, when you play the wide variety of maps in this game, you get used to it and learn to get better at it. So I think that's something that the game does pretty well. Map variety is pretty fun, and there's a lot of different maps in the game to play and get better at. So I think that's something that's really good. Another thing that I really like a lot is just the social experience. And I know I've talked about this before, but I'm telling you, even in Crucible, the social experience you get is so much fun. I love playing with my friends in Crucible. I love playing against them. And I really love just getting to know and meet people in Crucible. Because I think overall, Crucible is so much more fun with friends and more fun with other players. When you play with other players, it's much more enjoyable. And I don't mean other players playing against them. I mean other people like on your team. You make a fire team with them and stuff. Like the social experience you get is so much fun. And I love Crucible for that reason. There's a lot of toxicity in the community because of it. And especially for me as a streamer, there's a lot of people that just come into my chat and talk trash. And so do I. But I think that's the enjoyment. That's part of the enjoyment of the game and getting better at it. That, you know, you enjoy making social experiences with other players and having fun meeting other players. And I think a lot of people can agree with that. That when you play Crucible and this game as a whole, I think playing with friends is the best way to go. Because for one, it also helps negate the issue of skill-based matchmaking and waiting in queue times. Because if you really think about it, you don't have to worry about other players when you have competent players already in your team. You know what I mean? So I think that's something that really helps the game and really makes the game a much more fun experience, in my mind. Some people will agree and disagree with me, but I think overall, you know, Crucible is a great mode to have, and it's really one of the things that make this game much more replayable in my mind. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the raids in this game, because I think it's the community's favorite content from the game, as well as what keeps the majority of players coming back to the game, both new and old. Me personally, I can't say it's my favorite activity in the game. However, I can say without a doubt, it's one of the community's favorite things to do in the game, both because of the experience and, you know, overall the gameplay and the mechanics of raids, as well as the ability to socialize and make friends in the community. Now, I will say, it can be quite tedious at first, because you have to view it like this. There are thousands of players playing this game that have not actually played with other players and don't know what resources to use when looking for other people to play with, especially to do raids. Like, there are a lot of people that will say, oh, just invite randoms at the tower or use LFG servers or LFG sites in Discord servers. But you have to put yourselves in the shoes of a player that doesn't know about any of those things, except for, you know, the tower stuff. But obviously, not every player is going to know about Discord servers or LFG sites, unless someone tells them, right? So I think that's something that a lot of people seem to forget about, especially in the mind of a new player, because we've been playing this game for so many years that it's already ingrained into us. But you have to put yourselves in the shoes of a person that's fresh into the game that doesn't know much about it, right? So I think that is a little bit hindering to a lot of players that have been playing this game for a while that don't know about these things. And there is another thing too that, you know, especially for people that are experienced. Like, if you're someone that helps other people do raids and stuff, it can be kind of stressful to help other people get into the game and teach them how these raids work, and, you know, the different ways that people complete raids, because not everyone's going to do it the same way that you do it, right? So it's a little weird. But overall, I think this community really does keep itself alive because of both LFGs providing the opportunity for players to group up and complete raids and help each other out. And especially for a lot of newer players that once they understand and use these resources to their advantage, it really does make a full experience of this game. Once you experience the general game, grind it out, play your level up your characters, grind out to the max power level in the game. Raids are really the best finishing touches. Like, the experience you get from playing raids with other players and teaching other players that don't know much about raids really is a fun experience that I think a lot of people should remember and continue to recognize as something that the game does well in. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the raids because this video would be hours upon hours long, and there are plenty of raid explanations from other more experienced raiders that can help you rather than me explain it, because let's be real, I fucking suck at explaining things to people. But in any case, raids are a great addition to the overall game, and it's much needed content for endgame players to grind out and start collecting and earning more rewards, as well as helping other inexperienced players to learn and get better at the game, so that they in turn can help other players, and rinse and repeat. It becomes like a cycle where the game gets a lot more life, because there's a lot of new players that have actually started recently, especially recently, that have revisited Destiny 1 from Destiny 2, because a lot of Destiny 2 players have not actually played Destiny 1 or gone to experience it the same way that I've experienced it when I was, back in high school and shit like that, right? In an overall view of the game as a whole, this game would not be the same without raids, for sure. This game would not be the same experience without raids, and it really does make the game whole and adds content to the game that is heavily needed, as well as fun to play in, and especially with friends and people that you can actually do raids with in LFG servers and Discord sites, right? So in my mind, I think this game wouldn't be the same without it, for sure, 100%. And I think it's something that really does not make or break this game, but definitely something that a lot of players seem to forget about once they've done everything in the game, right? But to me, I really do appreciate raids and what they do for the community as a whole. So in any case, this game wouldn't be the same without raids. And that's end of story. Now, I know this video is a little bit scrambled up and a bit of a mess, but I'll use this as a personal project of mine to get better at editing and work harder on the YouTube channel. But overall, in any case, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what kind of videos you guys would like to see in the future. I hope you have a great day, and this is Gabe signing out. Peace.